Hello everyone, I'm Zahid from Talks at Innovation Valley podcast. Hello everyone, I'm Zahid from Talks at Innovation Valley podcast, and today we have very amazing guest, Brenda Tierney. I'm so excited to have her with us in the podcast. Brenda is currently Deputy Chief Protocol Office at Silicon Valley Office of Protocol, and previously Brenda was working as manager for partnerships at Meta, known previously known as the Facebook. So first of all, Brenda, I really warm welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much, Zahid. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you today.
You're welcome. So, audience, today our topic is very, very interesting. It's importance of public and private partnerships to build a great startup ecosystem. And let me tell you, Brenna is so good to talk on this topic, and he has so enriched experience on this topic. And that is the most interesting thing, that she is going to have a very deep and insightful conversation for all of our audience. So, Brenda, before we move to the topic and questions, I would love to know your personal story a little bit for our audience to relate. I mean, from where you got your education and how you got to the industry, from where you start your journey of professional, and how then you joined, when and how you joined the Facebook, and then right now what you are doing at the protocol office of Silicon Valley.
So I won't give you my life story, but I would say it starts with my parents and my father, who was an elected official and very interested in history and politics. And in Ireland, my family has quite the history of political engagement. I've been so fortunate through my life and have worked in actually a number of careers. At Meta, when I joined Meta, it was in 2011. And I worked with the communications and public policy team and moved from a role with them to internal communications, then to head of head of policy visits, during which time I was fortunate enough to host all kinds of visiting dignitaries who came to Facebook to understand about this new technology and to meet with Mark Zuckerberg and our other policy colleagues as social media rose in everybody's sphere of awareness. And then more recently, I was on the governance team, the team which helped to create the Facebook Oversight Board, which I think is a great example of considering partnerships and what the public needs and how to bring a group of people together to serve a public function. And then most recently, I have joined the Silicon Valley Office of Protocol, where I'm delighted to be working with some wonderful colleagues and the consular corps around the Silicon Valley, around the Bay Area, as their heads of state and the various consular activities occur. So it's been a wild ride and certainly a lucky and an exciting one.
All right. Thank you for sharing your journey, Brenda. Brenda, what is a startup ecosystem and why it is important to have a strong one?
Oh, it's essential to have a strong one because, and it starts with who is in that ecosystem. I mean, it's everybody from, in order to have a startup ecosystem, you need to have public entities who have an interest in furthering some cause, a private entity who is going to help perhaps fund that. That's typically their role. It is a means to advance a project, to perhaps bring it into the limelight and gain public support for it. It is an opportunity to startup ecosystems require venture funding, so it brings in all of those people who are innovators. It brings together a pool of talent. Often with startup ecosystems, you'll see that engineers particularly perhaps start in one company and they may stay for 2 years and they may move to another company and they bring some of that energy and startup innovation, creativity to their next opportunity. But it creates a pool of resources. So I think that having a strong startup ecosystem, having all of these players, it used to be in one physical location. Now we're beginning to be in a virtual world, and it's possible to have people all around the world come together, and the ecosystem is no longer so physically located. But having that pool of talent, those pool of resources, that's what makes a strong ecosystem.
All right. So, Brenda, how do public and private partnerships contribute to building a strong startup ecosystem?
I think that they are really, they are the way of bringing entities together to create a new and successful business venture. So from the business founders and the visionaries to the VCs, to the recruiters, to the employees, to the vendors, service providers, and most importantly, to potential customers, all of these entities come together as a new venture. And those startups often need to rely on VC funding. They need to rely on a broad and diverse set of relationships. VCs not only provide funding, but they often also bring a talent pool. So that talent pool is really critical to any startup ecosystem flourishing. They can also bring insights into the market and into the competitors in the field, because one really needs to understand the whole environment if you're going to be successful. And also, a startup ecosystem is an opportunity to forge new relationships. For me, it's all about the partnerships and the relationships, but those new relationships help to forge learning, help to inform the businesses about the ecosystem, about the marketplace, about conducting business within that particular marketplace, about the regulation that might impact that marketplace. And so with all businesses, as you know, diversity of opinion and perspective is going to help overcome any challenges that may arise within their business forming and flourishing.
All right. Brenda, can you give some examples of successful public and private partnerships in building the startup ecosystem? For example, the different regions and different countries. Which country you idolize, and or which state of, for example, USA, you idolize when you see this public and private partnerships and a great startup ecosystem, or maybe any other country?
I mean, I think that Silicon Valley is a wonderful example. When you come here and you go to Sand Hill Road and there are all of the VCs there, and you come down the valley into the actual valley, and there is, Apple, that started as a small business out of a garage, Mark Zuckerberg, who came over here because this was the place to be and to find other engineers and to grow his business. I think Silicon Valley is really one of the hubs. I think, as an Irish person, the IDA in Ireland is a wonderful example of a public entity that helps to bring together public-private partnerships and has grown many, many businesses, and helps to inform companies and potential companies of the benefits that working in their country, in Ireland, might have. For Facebook, in my experience, Facebook had the Facebook Startup Garage, and so they helped to form one of the world's largest startup environments in Paris. It's called F8, and so it's Station F, excuse me, but Station F in Paris is actually one of the world's largest innovation hubs, and they have over 3,000 small businesses that have started there. And one of the things that does is bring together all of this talent that then can talk to each other, that can bring together all of the different experiences. And out of that, they've had more than 30 really successful programs. And Station F actually is very interesting, because not only do they bring together the VCs, the engineering resources, the great minds who are going to help to build these businesses, but they look after all of the employee population. So they offer housing, they offer all of the resources that you could need, that you might need in order to begin your business and to grow your business. So for me, Station F is actually one of the most successful.
All right. So, Brenda, what are some of the challenges in building public-private partnerships, and how can they be overcome?
Great question. I think it's about who are all the players, and as we've mentioned, there can be many. It's about getting everybody to the same page. When we were at Facebook, we were involved in the Dumbarton rail line, the Dumbarton corridor. So getting consent from all of the partners is really critical to the success of any public-private partnership. And there are many players, and sometimes those players, you might think, okay, it's a public entity, but the public entity could be 22 cities that touch a rail corridor. It could be 3 counties that touch that rail corridor. And so there are many municipalities and many different agencies that you have to bring together and have agreement with on the future of your project. So consent from all the parties, agreement on what's going to be the outcome and who's going to benefit from the outcome. When a private entity funds a public-private partnership, they're in it. There's a reason why they're there. There's a reason that they are going to benefit. In the Dumbarton Rail Corridor example, Facebook would have benefited by having a conduit for their employees, a mechanism for their employees to more easily get to work. It would help to fulfill climate needs. But those things are really important, is understanding who's going to benefit. And at the end of the day, who's going to take over responsibility for it? How is it going to be administrated? And then finally, what are the regulatory basics? What's happening in the regulation space that is going to allow for this? And does there need to be any change in regulation, or does there need to be some change in the way that you conduct the private partnership or the way that you conduct the business in order to conform to the regulating constraints?
All right. Brenda, what role do government policies and regulations play in building a successful startup ecosystem? And what kind of policies are kind of hindrances where the partnerships does not go successfully, and how to fix it? I mean,
Okay, they're critical. They're critical. One cannot conduct business if it's an illegal business. So in the case of Facebook, as you've been following along for social media, Section 230 is of critical importance to Facebook having come into being and being able to grow, because content is not the responsibility entirely of the company. So regulation is hugely important, and you really do need to know the regulations and the policies that are in place in your jurisdiction that are going to impact the manner in which you do business. The other thing that government policies and regulations do is they can help to provide access to funding. So having the government involved means that you know what the regulatory environment is. You may be able to access funding, grants. You may get intellectual property protection. You might be offered the opportunity to, there may be easements into physical locations. There may be talent access that you can have. And the other thing that government does, although it's kind of it's less obvious perhaps, is the infrastructure. Without infrastructure, without the roads to get to your business, without the internet to connect to your business, you may not have a business. So governments provide all of these things.
all right. Brenda, how can private investors and companies support the development of startup ecosystem, and how governments can attract private investors and companies to invest in the startup ecosystem?
I think, first of all, it's access to funding. I think that public-private partnerships can provide startup founders and innovators with funding, and that really is, and funding that comes to them not free, but in a manner that has a different cost. And that really is something that will allow a business to begin. They often have, governments and public entities often have more resources at their disposal. So again, it's about those grants and loans to support the growth of and development of a startup. They may also be able to suggest partners or expertise and resources. They can provide networking opportunities, and really they can also provide increased visibility, because within the government there are many mechanisms for public and private companies to share. So for instance, in the Bay Area, there are all kinds of different groups. There's the Bay Area Council, but as startups begin to flourish, as regulations change, there are many ways that you can help to stay informed, and that is also a great benefit.
All right. Brenda, how do public and private partnerships help in attracting talent and resources to the startup ecosystem? And what are the challenges? I mean, what are the key reasons when the talent actually the public-private partnerships cannot attract the talents?
I mean, I think that's very, at the end of the day, without people, where are we? So such an important question. Public-private partnerships help to attract talent because people join for many different reasons. And as we've said, through a public-private partnership, through a government agency, through bringing together and creating that ecosystem, there are often opportunities for talent. And as your engineers, particularly in the Silicon Valley, we are driven by engineers in many ways. Having multiple choices of employment and employer is something that brings people to a geographic location, because it is easy for them, or easier for them, to be sure that they're going to have a future. Bringing together great minds is a wonderful thing, bringing together that diversity of opinion. These are all things that attract talent. Making sure that the environment is creative, that there's opportunity for people to take their idea and have it grow. These are all things that are going to help bring more and more people to the table.
Brenda, there are exciting ideas. Many things could be done when the partnerships happen, but there is a challenge. The challenge is we call something bring people, bring teams, and bring all stakeholders on one page.
Mm-hmm.
That's very challenging. Who plays the key role to bring all the stakeholders on one page to make public and private partnerships happy and going on?
So I think that it goes back to the very beginning and your question about what makes a strong ecosystem. It is about having consensus in a way, making sure that at the very beginning of your endeavor that there has been some consensus. There is an agreement on what the outcomes should be. There is an agreement on what the costs might be, what the time frame might be, what the regulatory impact is going to be, or the mitigating steps that you're going to take. In the instance of the oversight board, for instance, as Facebook was looking to create such a body, which was really fraught with challenges, because we know that it was almost an impossible task to create a body that would have diverse opinion across geography, across gender, across race, across political perspective. And so going out, we conducted a consultation in order to gain everybody's opinion. We went around the world to speak to experts to determine who this body might include, what their purview might be, what their range of what the range of things that they would do could be. And in that instance, it's up to the company. It's probably not up to the government in that instance to make sure that it works, because the private entity is the one at the end of the day who hopefully is going to make the profit. There's always going to be a benefit to the public in that public-private partnership. But I think that at the end of the day, the responsibility is really on the company, and then on whoever is going to bring all of those opinions together. That really is where it lands at the end of the day. It's about the relationships and about the transparent communication to make sure that the network has all agreed.
All right. Brenda, how can startup founders and entrepreneurs can benefit from public and private partnerships?
I think that the real benefit is well, it depends on what you're offering, but the benefit is going to be whatever you want it to be. The public-private partnership is going to allow you to get there just a little bit faster. A public-private partnership should have a benefit, and it should have a benefit to both entities. So if you are going to engage in something, the Dumbarton Rail Corridor, again, is a good example where there's a benefit to all of the participants, then it has a greater chance of success. So a startup company is going to gain access to information, perhaps access to funding, perhaps access to grants, perhaps access to additional commitments from the public that will help to make their business grow.
Right. Brenda, everything has KPIs. At the end of the day, what are the key performance indicators and matrices that really the startup ecosystem and the public-private partnerships thing is going great? How to measure the success?
I think you should have those KPIs outlined right at the beginning, so that you have an idea. I think it's about hitting your goals in your time frame as you go. So understanding success, it can be different for different entities involved. How can you understand success is what was the ultimate goal, and as you go, and sometimes the goal changes as you go along, but it is really about having had a clear goal at the beginning, and then ensuring that you are following along in the time frame that you've set out.
Right. Brenda, last question. In fact, not the question. Every guest that comes to my show, I ask this. And in fact, before that, trust me, it was really amazing conversation with you. Really insightful. And thank you for joining. In the last, Brenda, any message, inspiring message that you would like to give my podcast audience, which is potential entrepreneurs, university students, teachers, business community, and education community? Any message?
I think if you have a dream, you should follow it. If you have a passion, go explore it. That all things are possible. If you can find a way, and very often there are people, once you can expand on your vision, once you can share your vision, once you can portray your vision clearly, there are many, many entities that will help you to accomplish it. So if you have a brilliant idea, I would say talk to people about it, Protect your IP, but talk to people about it. Explore what the government might be able to do for you, what a partnership with another entity might be able to do for you, and see if you can make it happen.
All right, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining the podcast, and thank you for your really, really insightful conversation. And I'm sure that all my audience will learn a lot out of your all the conversation, especially all the startup ecosystem players.
Thank you, Zahid. It's been a pleasure to be here.